studio today with Brother Suhail as well as Brother Hamza. Our topic of discussion is going to be recovery, and also we're going to be discussing in that goal setting and the importance of goals. Just for all of our listeners out there, I'm Mukhtar, and you're listening to the Rauf Show. If anybody would like to WhatsApp us, you can do so on 060-904-1056. Let me repeat, 060-904-1056. Before we start the show, just a small announcement to make. There's quite a few things happening this weekend, but the IMA Baitul Noor presents the Family Wellness Weekend taking place today. It's at NMJ Hall, and the entry fee is 10 Rand. There's going to be tons of lucky draws, competitions, and voucher giveaways. So for anybody that would like a free health screening or to just ask a few questions at educational stalls, you're more than welcome to go there. And yes, you can take your kids as they will activities as well. So back to our topic and our show, the Rauf Show. As mentioned, we're going to be discussing goal setting and the importance of goals in the life of a recovery. Now, to set the stage for this conversation, it's very important to note that sometimes what happens when a person is in active addiction or when a person has spent a number of years in recovery, they sometimes have this loss of time that they can't now account for. And as a result, it puts them on the back foot. If you look at it from an outside point of view, oh, you're now 30 years old and you haven't achieved X, Y, and Z in your life, or you're now 25 years old and you haven't achieved these things. And that now opens up the doorway to a whole conversation regarding goals, the importance of goals, and how these goals can affect your life and your recovery going forward. So I'm maybe going to speak to the youngest person in studio here today with us, Brother Hamza, who's going to give us a bit about his life, because he's been in recovery through school and he's now, got his degree and so on whilst in recovery. So, Brother Hamza, tell us a bit about your challenges and how goals have affected your life, or the importance of goals in your life in this early stage of your recovery and life.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I think before I touch on that, if I can just give a small recap of goal setting and how I applied it in active addiction, for example. To summarize that entire chapter of my life, it is that any goal that I set, any objective that I wanted to achieve, the central focus surrounding those goals was drug usage. That was the pinnacle focus. Any goal that I had to that I wanted to achieve, that was the end result. So now in recovery, we have to flip that script, whereby any goals that we set to achieve, any objectives that we're looking to attain, recovery has to be the main focal point. If I can speak on my personal goal setting in my journey of recovery, I think starting from the very beginning, coming out of addiction into recovery, the first goal that we have, and funny enough, that's the first goal we achieve in recovery, and it's also the last goal we achieve in our life, which is to get off this path of addiction and to change our lives. So that was my first goal, and but I will say this: it wasn't my first goal until that level of denial was, or I was done away with that level
Yeah.
of denial. Because in the beginning, I can speak for myself, I didn't accept I have a problem. So the goal to change my life was never there. Only until the basic tools of the Rauf program gets instilled in us. For example, introspection. Introspecting with humility, with sincerity, and with honesty. Really coming to look at my life. This is what I've done. These are all the damages I've caused, and the result of that shows I do have a problem. Once you accept that, then the first goal, which is to change my life and to end this chapter of addiction and start this new chapter of recovery, that is the first goal that I set, and it's the first goal you achieve in Rauf. But like I say, it's also the last goal we achieve in life, because you're only a recovered individual the day you pass away.
Unfortunately.
Because of it being a lifelong journey. So with that being the first goal, I get into the program. I follow, starting from the farm. We learn recovery from the ground, the grassroots, coming into the center, starting my new chapter, going home, coming back, and so recovery takes its shape. And then from there, after getting discharged, your goals change. Now you're looking to still better my life, but now move forward in terms of, like you mentioned, I got my degree. So a goal of mine was to, finish my tertiary education. I started my degree. That was a goal. Shukr alhamdulillah, through the support of my family and Rauf, I completed that goal. then moves on to the next goal, which is I want seek employment in the field that I studied for. And like that, the goals keep on. You keep setting goals, and every time we accomplish it, we make shukr that we've accomplished a goal, and we set another goal. But the key point in all of this that I'm saying is that recovery has to be the central focus of all these goals. It's very easy, like you mentioned, and like we were discussing before the program, to fall into this unhealthy, impatient behavior where we want to make up for lost time. We want to catch up, to our peers and people in our age group. So, in doing that, in having that impatient, unhealthy mindset, there's potential to do wrong. There's potential to want to make money in the wrong ways, and to take employment perhaps in fields that is not conducive to recovery. And so all of these risks are at play. So managing goal settings, managing the goals that you set, keeping recovery, in the central point of all of that plays a big role.
I'm glad you brought that up, because if you look at goals, right? As you were saying, initially your first goals would be to obviously stay clean of drugs and so on and so on. And that breaks it down into things where we now need to actually look at short-term goals, medium to long-term goals, and then long-term goals. And with that being mentioned, we have to also understand the reason why goals are so important, because goals help a person to stay focused. But with recovery, we need to also understand that sometimes, as we mentioned earlier, and as you mentioned, and as I'm going to mention now again, because we are so caught up in what other people think of us and where we need to be in our life based on standards other people have placed on an individual, we sometimes lose focus. And if you look at the life of a recovery, losing focus is one of the biggest challenges that they would possibly have to encounter. Because when a person starts to lose focus, then we're now sitting in a situation where everything else now revolves around what's the current focus, forgetting what was the previous focus and the main focus and the long term goal, which is a life of full time sobriety and a healthy life with a healthy family and a healthy family, being. Brother Suhail, tell us a bit about your experiences with goal setting and the importance of goal setting in your life, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all the listeners out there. Yeah, speaking about this topic reminds me of where I've come from. First of all, when it came to my initial stages in Rauf, obviously I was in a full-blown addiction where I didn't really actually know what was goals. I had no clue of where my life is going. And Alhamdulillah, with this program, firstly, introspection was the key. Getting myself out of denial. I think so-called goals initially were pushed onto me, being in the farm. You know, then came coming out into integration, where still there was no focus on life, on what I'm going to do in my life, because sometimes in life, Mukhtar, we tend to mess up our goal. We think of goals as material, as worldly.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I've learned is that spirituality is the key. And especially when it came to my recovery, this program of Rauf is 50% spirituality. And that's where I focused on initially, until I realized that, everything comes from Allah. And, now we're talking the material side of it, where I thought I would never have gotten back into my working world in the same place. And it all just fell into place. So that's when I started realizing that it is important to start setting goals in my life. But yes, easier said than done, because when it comes to sobriety, we have to take each day as it comes, one day at a time. And our ultimate goal is to keep clean, to follow in the straight path. And I think that has been more challenging in the first few years of my recovery. And yes, life is setting in now, alhamdulillah. So many things have happened. We have these goals. I want to get married, I want this, I want that, and alhamdulillah, Allah has put that in place for me. uh, and then you keep on setting more and more goals. But what I've also realized is, with this whole goal setting thing, that the one thing that we have learned is disappointment, is how to handle disappointment. And a lot of things don't go your way, and that is where the battle starts. the battle in this whole goal setting, in this whole, in your recovery basically starts coming into play. And that's still, no matter what, if in my goal setting, if I put myself and my recovery first, I find that once again, reminding myself of where I'm coming from, how things have opened up for me from 7 years ago,
Yeah.
and how it is now, is purely because of the faith that you have in Allah, the path that you're following, and ultimately just staying clean.
Correct. So we're going to stop for a quick ad break. When we get back, inshallah, we'll discuss the conversation, or we'll continue the conversation with regards to goal setting and the importance of goals.
There are over 200 million orphans globally. We can't help all of them. But what if we each helped just one? The Al Imdad Foundation now gives you an opportunity to help just one orphan from Syria or Palestine. For just 500 Rand per month, you can help safeguard the dignity of an orphan by assisting them with basic needs such as food, clothing, shelter, medical care, and attention. Our orphan sponsorship program allows you to track the progress of your orphan through regular feedback. Make a difference in the life of an orphan today. Visit alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Durban, it's time for the Sultan Bahu Family Fete, and Radio Al Ansar is going to be there in all its glory. Catch the full team with your favorite presenters live in action from Radio Al Ansar's mobile studio from Thursday to Sunday, 7th to the 10th of August at the Old Durban Drive-In site. Radio Al Ansar goes live from the Sultan Bahu Family Fete 2025, where joy meets generosity. See you there.
اللهم إنك ترى ما نزل بنا في غزة من الأحوال يا ذا الجلال والعزة يا ذا الجبروت والعزة اللهم أعز أهل غزة اللهم فرج عن أهل غزة اللهم فرح أهل غزة اللهم انصر أهل غزة اللهم داوي جريحهم اللهم اشف مريضهم اللهم اقبل شهيدهم اللهم ارحم ميتهم اللهم كفف جراحاتهم وبرد آلامهم اللهم واجعل لهم وللمسلمين فرجا قريبا يا الله اللهم فرج عنا وعن المسلمين في كل مكان اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين واخذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداء الدين يا رب العالمين سبحانك سبحانك ترى الظالمين فتمهلهم حتى يظنوا أنك تهملهم وتبتلي الصالحين في الدنيا حتى يستيئسوا فإن استيئسوا أتيتهم بنصرهم اللهم إنك تعلم أن جراحات المسلمين كثيرة وآلامهم كثيرة في كل مكان وفي كل زمان اللهم فانصرنا على أعدائنا يا الله اللهم فثبت أقدامنا يا الله.
Radio Al Ansar, Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM.
Do you know someone with a drug problem?
Join me, Ibrahim Dawood, every Sunday 1 to 2 p.m. on our fight against drug abuse, where we will discuss the scourge of substance abuse in our communities and listen to the hard-hitting points from real-life experiences and true motivators.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to the Rauf show. You're listening to Mukhtar. In studio today, I'm joined by brother Suhail as well as brother Hamza. Our topic of discussion is goal setting and the importance of goals in recovery. And we are currently broadcasting live from the Sultan Bahu fair at the Old Durban Drive-In. So please feel free to join us if you are in the area. Also, if you are closer to the Overport area, remember the Wellness Day is taking place at the NMJ Hall, so you can go there as well. Lots of wellness screenings and so on can be done for you free of charge. So back to our topic of discussion, we are talking about goals. Goals in recovery are very different from goals that a normal person would have out there. Yes, they may sound materialistically similar, but in actual fact, the focus of these goals are very much more different. So, for example, we were discussing in the first half of the program how the initial goal is finding recovery, and now the goal is maintaining recovery. So we are aware, and this is known, that goals will change, from one to another. And that simply highlights the fact that, yes, sometimes you're going to have short-term goals, sometimes you're going to have mid-term goals, and sometimes, most definitely, we're going to have long-term goals. Now, in recovery, we'll find that the people that have been in addiction have lost years of their life. And because of this loss of time, when they now find recovery and they're getting back into society, we find that they're now at a certain age and the community expects them to be at a certain level. But these people have now fallen back due to the fact that they were in addiction and it took them some time to find recovery. So I'd like to call upon Brother Suhail to tell us initially, how it feels going in, spending all that time in addiction and in recovery, and now that he's back with his family, working and so on. The stresses and the experience of being, in a way, materialistically behind where he should have been for his peers. Not to say that he's any worse off than anybody else, but the mindset. How does that affect the mindset?
Okay, it was extremely difficult, Mukhtar, especially when you're coming out of addiction for so many years and you've missed so many years of your life. You become very despondent, even though you're in recovery and have been through the program and what have you. When you come out and you actually see what you have lost and what others have gained materially, so it puts you down. It puts you on a damper. But like I mentioned earlier on, I think the one thing that kept me afloat was the spirituality, because I started looking around me at life, and there were a lot of people out there materially that have made millions, and then you've also seen a lot of people out there that have lost everything, and not due to addiction, just to their luck. So I've come to realize that, what, Alhamdulillah, step one, I'm clean. Now we're from here, and step two was I got back my job, which was a big bonus for me, so I could fund, I could start my initial as a family
start
man.
life again,
I could start again. And look, it's been a good few years, and if you look at it from a financial point of view, I've achieved so much in the little steps, in the little things that have happened in my life. I think those little things make a huge difference. That gratitude for the small things that you have achieved materially, now that we're speaking materially, have made such an impact in my life that I don't look back now. Like I say, I get down, I get despondent. There's certain things that I want in life that but obviously, if Allah Ta'ala hasn't willed for me, I will work for it. But if it's not meant for me, it's not meant for me. And that's the attitude that I've started adopting until recently, to realize that, what, this is my path, and this is how I have to go ahead and do this. And once again, there's a lot of obstacles in the way. It's easier said than done. With regard to the family members and stuff, alhamdulillah, I think, as you know, I think everyone, family, outsider, I speak Rauf, I speak recovery to everyone that I possibly see, even an outsider. Even if I walk into a pharmacy, for example, the pharmacist knows, hey, I can't have that medication, even if I don't know him from above. So with that, I found that it motivates me, because people actually do understand out there that this guy is in recovery, and he's moving, he's going with his life. He's trying in the right path. So that also helps me in my actual goal setting. I mean, it might sound a bit off track. And what I find is also the family support is what has helped me get where I am. With these programs for our caregivers, it has helped them so much understand me completely as a recovery, and understand what I was like, and make me hear of what I was like in addiction. So that again helps me focus on my goals. So yeah.
Jazakallah for that. Also listening to what you're saying, it's very important for us to understand that when it comes to setting goals, especially for us in recovery, that the goals have to be realistically achievable. Because one of the big things that we find for brothers and sisters in recovery is that sometimes one of the biggest triggers for a relapse, or even a big trigger for addiction, is when the emotions start to run wild, unchecked. And disappointment is often used as an excuse for drug use, abuse, and also relapse. So it's very important for us to maintain the rules that were learned and the things that were learned whilst in early recovery, to ensure that when we are setting those goals, when we are looking for those things to move forward materialistically in life, because that's unfortunately how life is. When we're looking for those things materialistically, when it comes to jobs and so on, we have to set goals which are very realistic and very achievable. And we also need to keep our emotions in check, because if something were to go wrong, we do know now how to handle the situation. But with saying that, as Brother Hamza had mentioned in the first part of the program, recovery must be center, dead center of the whole thing. The entire life must revolve around recovery, because what happens is, if you somehow drift away from the support group program, you will find that it becomes more and more challenging to maintain a clear sense of emotion. It becomes more and more difficult to ensure that your focus stays in the way it's supposed to stay. And what happens is, you now start to be on your own. And then when you're on your own, you start to become influenced by people that are around you, or people that are trying to possibly influence you in the wrong manner. And that is one of the things that will most definitely lead a person to a relapse. So we've heard about Brother Suhail and how his challenges were at with regard to goal setting and so on. I'd like to ask Brother Hamza, who's now obviously a lot younger than Suhail, about what he may have experienced after coming out of the center. Because remember, Hamza is young, and obviously he is not married with no children, and his responsibilities are a little bit different from Brother Suhail's. So this now obviously means that the challenges will become different as well. As a young man, wanting to obviously get a car and move out and have these friends and go out, that type of thing. Life changes, goals change. So now, Brother Hamza, tell us a bit about your perspective.
Mukhtar, I used to always get a bit annoyed when people would call me youth, especially mostly by you, until I registered my business. And when I applied for BE certification, I realized, according to our government, you are youth until the age of 30.
Yeah.
So I felt much better about that. But coming back
This,
to,
by the way, Islamically, I think it's 36.
wow, look at that. I don't feel so bad. Coming back to your question, what I've learned in recovery over the years is that I have to, when it comes to my goal setting, I have to do it with patience and humility. That's number one. Number one and number two is patience and humility. For one of the main reasons which you've mentioned, which is that if you set a goal, if I set a goal and I find it doesn't work my way, the emotions, like you mentioned, can become quite intense. So, how do I manage that? By setting, like you mentioned, realistic expectations when it comes to my goals. What realistically is possible? What does it seem like I can achieve in this time frame? And with that comes taking the guidance of either Rauf or my support structure. So, especially when it comes to taking the guidance of, for example, Uncle Ibrahim, people that we trust, people that who, if they tell us to do X, Y, and Z, we trust that they have our best interests at heart. Likewise with my family, with my support structure, taking their guidance, making mashura, like we say. So all of these tools go a long way in me making, setting healthy, realistic goals in my life. At the moment, like you mentioned, my situation is different from, for example, Brother Sohail, because I'm not married, for example, and much less responsibility than a family man. But with that comes, like you mentioned, my age and wanting to achieve, wanting to make a success of myself as soon as possible. Now, that as soon as possible clause can bring in some risk. It can leave room for disappointment. With that disappointment, if I don't manage it correctly, it can lead to unmanageable emotion. With that can come erratic, unpredictable, unstable behavior. With that can come a risk of a relapse. With the risk of a relapse, or with the relapsing, can come the possibility of destroying all that I've built over the years. So there's a whole ripple effect that can come from a something trivial as setting an unrealistic goal or unrealistic expectation. So this is something we know because we are taught in the program to look at the cause and effect, to go down the line, keep asking what will happen if this happens, and then what will happen, and then what will happen, till we find the ultimate, result. And when we understand the ultimate result, especially when it's dangerous to our lives, we know now, okay, we have to start from the beginning and make sure every step along the way, we do it with guidance, we do it with humility. Like Brother Sohail mentioned, we have to be spiritually grounded. And, we have to be patient. So, Alhamdulillah, that's working for me. It has been challenging many parts, over the years. I've been in many periods, mentally, where I'm just completely distraught. Things are not working out for me. I completed my degree. I couldn't find a job in the field that I studied in. uh, Emotions were, completely unstable. But the mere fact that we can come once a week, even if you, for example, I'm not a person that speaks much, opens up to my support structure, but the program, the people who I know can relate to me, I speak to them.
Your peers.
Absolutely. Whether it's in the program, which is a must, and also outside of the program. Hey, I need a little bit more advice. I know you've been down this path. Walk me through it, how you overcame it. We have our role models. Like I mentioned, Uncle Ibrahim. Each of us have our role models that we look up to. We ask them, we lean on them in times of support, in times of trouble. So all of these tools we have at our disposal. It will be foolish for us not to use it. you know so alhamdulillah, that's how my journey with goal setting has been. And so far, shukr, alhamdulillah, it's been going well. There have been lots of challenges in life in different aspects, but having that humility, that patience, and having that guidance and accepting that guidance, it goes a long way, alhamdulillah.
With goal setting, right, one of the things that we need to also understand is setting goals in recovery helps us to maintain direction and focus. A lot of the time, especially when it comes to the older in age gentlemen that come into the program, you'll find that they've lost almost everything or all of everything. And with goal setting, it helps them to now build up get the direction and focus back, to allow them to build back whatever they've lost, maybe even better than what they have lost, but remaining or keeping in the back of their mind that recovery should be in the front of your mind. It also helps with the motivation to keep going forward, because I mean, we all know this, we've all experienced this. Whatever the goal may be, whether it be learning to ride a bicycle or tie your own shoelace if you're a small child, every failure is a frustration. And generally, when you look at people that are in active addiction, they use that frustration as a reason or an excuse to actually go out and do drugs. And this frustration can also be used as an excuse or a reason for a person to relapse. So it actually motivates. Maintaining goals and achieving small achievable goals helps the person to maintain motivation and to also introduce discipline into their lives. It provides them with a bit of structure and stability, and it also helps replace old habits with new habits. So you're now creating positive out of the negative. But it's very, very important to also note that when it comes to people with an addictive personality, sometimes goals, if not checked properly or if not discussed with families and the responsible people in their lives, can also lead to destruction. We've seen it, many times over, especially in the number of years that Rauf has been in existence, that sometimes brothers will come out of drug addiction and fall into the addiction of making money. And what that now leads to is, for example, the person now willing to make that extra few rand by whatever means necessary. And when I say whatever means necessary, I'm talking about illegal things where they're starting to rob people, they're starting to commit fraud. And this is also a form of addiction, where the addiction to achieve materialistic items or to achieve materialistic things or status now starts to overcome and substitute the addiction for drugs. And that is where goal setting is so very, very important. And this is why we need to understand how to set goals. Goals have to be sometimes all times very realistic. Sometimes we have to start off small. If I want to become a pilot, obviously I got to look at my age and think to myself, am I at the right age to learn how to fly a plane? Yes, I may be able to get pilot's license to fly on my own small little Cessna, but am I now going to become a fully fledged professional pilot flying aircraft, a passenger aircraft? It may not work in my situation. So we have to look at our goals in that regard as well, because you can't always, not everybody can become doctors, and we need to understand and accept that. But with the Rauf program being at the forefront, as you mentioned, Hamza, sometimes there are things that you can't discuss with your caregivers or your support structure for simple reasons they may not understand. And if they don't understand, who else can you speak with? So the people that you can speak with are your brothers in recovery who have most definitely gone through the same challenges that you have gone through. Those that may be in recovery for a bit longer than you would have walked the same path as you and may have answers that you may require for that moment. So it's very important for us to keep that in the back of our mind. With regards to achieving small goals. Now, as you mentioned, the frustration is there when something doesn't go to plan. But how is that sense of joy or achievement felt, or how do you feel when you've achieved a small goal that you've set for yourself? Like, for example, I know when you did your degree, you were very, very excited. But then obviously when it comes to finding a job, that didn't work out very well. But now you've got your own business. Tell us a bit about how that emotional roller coaster could have taken you astray had you not had those direct, no specific goals in place, and you were, and if for whatever reason you decided to walk away from the Rauf program, would that have helped you or been more destructive to your situation?
I think the way things worked out, I have to make a lot of shukr that things worked out the way they did because of being committed to the program and taking the guidance of, like I mentioned, my support structure and Rauf as an organization. Like you mentioned, for example, I finished my degree and I was on the job hunt, and I got. We don't just accept any position. We want, the ideal position, things like that. And with the job situation in South Africa, it wasn't good. So therein came the second thoughts. Did I study the right? Did I do the right degree? Should I, pack up my things and move overseas, or should I? What can I do? This and that, this and that, and now all these thoughts will play on my mind. And the only way I can get some kind of guidance is by speaking to someone who's more experienced than me, someone who's been down this path. Because it's my first time going down this path. I don't know what to do, and there's a very high chance that I will make the wrong decision. So, in reality, what I did, I spoke to people who's more experienced than me, whether it's professionals, whether it's academics, whether it's the director of, for example, Uncle Ibrahim himself. We rely a lot on him. Sometimes we give him a bit of a hard time. We just unload our problems on him, but we know the guidance he's going to give us is solid. How to move forward, and so things were put in place, and I weighed my pros and cons, and you just keep moving forward. There's an obstacle, you look at how you're going to overcome this obstacle, or you bypass the obstacle and you move forward. That's life. It's not solely and specifically recoveries that goes through this. Anyone goes through this. That's unfortunately, that's how life is. And recovery teaches us how to live life on life's terms, dealing with obstacles as they come. So it was important not to feel sorry for myself. That was a big challenge, not to feel like I'm still being punished for all the wrongs that I've committed. I had to understand that unfortunately, sometimes, things happen the way they do. So overcoming obstacles is a big part of goal setting, and it just kept moving forward. And now, alhamdulillah, things are still moving slowly, but it's consistent. And the main thing for me is staying content, staying happy, not getting impatient, not suddenly flipping the switch and wanting to do something drastic. So just take it a day at a time and enjoy life. That's the main thing that I try to, focus on, is just enjoy life the way it is. Make shukr for the situation I am in now. My family, we have a beautiful relationship. The respect, the trust, everything like that is coming back. Make shukr for that and just keep moving forward. As obstacles come, they're not the end of the world. We deal with them and we move forward.
Brother Suhail, as we come to the end of our show, give us a few of your words of advice.
I'm just going back and thinking of these programs. Everyone must be wondering, the listeners out there, especially with somebody that's got a family member that's in addiction. When you listen to all these topics of goal settings and all of that, it seems very far fetched. The thing is, when it comes to recovery, I think the one thing that Rauf makes it very clear is never miss your Friday night program, at least. And for me, the Friday night program, like Hamza says, we brothers that are sitting together, it's amazing how we've seen fellow brothers fall. What you mentioned about chasing for money and chasing for business opportunities, and you go to such a point where you end up doing the wrong thing, and in most cases you relapse. So I think it's lessons learned from our brothers in recovery. Sadly, we want to help ourselves and help each other in these programs, but sometimes it just depends where a person's mind is. And yes, a lot of brothers have come back and put their lives straight after all of that. But then by that time, it was already a complete relapse. So I think the one thing that was taught to us was, be selfish in your recovery. And I think that's where that falls in. Alhamdulillah, with all the years that I've been coming to the Friday night program, I've seen so many, cases where our brothers have faltered and not maybe relapsed, but faltered and have come back on track. And I think those were lessons for me with regard to this whole idea, or this whole, with all the topics that we do in recovery, you know. And yes, when I spoke about spirituality, Mukhtar, it's easier said than done. Once again, I mean, Rauf taught us read your 5 times salah, which was the farz. Rauf tells us be there for zikr on a Thursday night. I mean, last week Thursday night, for example, I was absolutely lazy. But when you come out from the zikr, it's amazing how you feel. It's like going exercising in the morning. We wake up, we don't want to exercise, but when you do it and you actually on it, in my case, I cycle. When I get off the bicycle, I'm like, hey, I should be doing this every day or every second day. Obviously, everything is in doses. When it comes to these things, and I think from an Islamic perspective, our goal settings can be much more easier if we follow the program and what the program has taught us. And also, if we bring ourselves down to, one thing that's been drilled in us is humility, and I think the feeding schemes alone teach us about what the world is actually out there, how people are suffering out there, and how we can make a difference. And that alone can help us recoveries. It motivates us to such a point that we, it's actually easier to, those goals that are reached much more easier, for sure.
So as we come to the end of the show, just a few quick tips for our listeners out there. When setting goals, please ensure that recovery is central point. You have to make sure that all of your goals focus around your recovery and not, your recovery focusing around your goals, because recovery should be front and center. Recovery will give you back everything that you have lost as long as recovery is number one. Then the second one will be obviously make your goals very realistic and very achievable. So you know that it's not something that you're going to be chasing as a pipe dream. Be specific about your goals. A lot of brothers will say, Inshallah, we'll stay clean. No, stay clean for today as a goal. Stay clean for tomorrow as a goal, and continue down that way instead of simply saying, Inshallah, everything will be fine. Mix your long-term and short-term goals. That means celebrate your small wins while keeping in sight your long-term possibilities and your long-term prospects. Write down your goals. This goes back down to Hamza when you were with us during the personal growth program. Journaling is very, very important. Write down what you want. Create a vision board if it works for you, but make sure you write these things down. Then also, very importantly, to deal with your emotional struggles and to also deal with failure is review and adjust accordingly, and review and adjust regularly. Remember, goal setting is difficult. Achieving those goals is not easy either. So you need to also adapt, according to these things. And then with the spiritual goals, I mean, Rauf is always going to be spiritual no matter how you look at it. Ensure that you don't start now skipping on your salah. One of the things that we look at as a form of relapse is when the brothers who've left the center now start missing one salah in a day. That is, as we would say, the first steps or signs that a person may relapse. Then personal goals. Relationship rebuilding must take place. Improve your health. And very importantly, contribute positively towards your community. How do the brothers in recovery contribute positively towards their community? Number one, by attending the support group programs and being the support for other brothers and sisters in recovery. And as you mentioned, also the feeding schemes that Rauf takes part in as well. And then also, very, very importantly, accountability. We as people tend to be very, very unaccountable and don't like to hold ourselves accountable whenever something is going wrong. But we want to take all of the attributes and all of the congratulations that things are going right. So we need to actually hold ourselves accountable for everything that we do, good or bad. As we come to the end of the program, I'd like to also just let everybody know Rauf is a non-profit organization, meaning we don't receive any funds from anybody, and we're also a non-government organization, so we don't receive any funds from government. The only funds we do receive are from our sponsors, donors, well-wishers, and there are too many for me to mention. But at the same time, we'd like to also inform you that Rauf does also do its own fundraising to ensure that we don't put too much of a pressure on our sponsors, donors, and well-wishers. So what we are going to be doing or hosting soon is our Rauf annual fundraising dinner, which will be taking place on the 6th of September at 233 Spencer Road. That is our Durban head office. If anybody would like to attend, you can purchase tickets. You can contact 060-728-3786. You can WhatsApp this number 060-728-3786, and you will be able to purchase tickets for either yourself or to sponsor to a family that would like to attend and doesn't have the means to do so. Remember, a lot of the cases that Rauf takes on are zakatable cases, so these monies and these vouchers or these tickets can be given to those families in need. All of the funds raised will be going to the upkeep of the rehabilitation center and also the feeding of the boys that are in the center. Remember, it does cost us approximately 200 Rand per person per day to ensure that each person is fed accordingly. Now, we're not talking about just breakfast, lunch, and supper. We're talking about breakfast, tea, lunch, tea, supper, and then possibly, a little snack before lights out. So please do feel free to contact us. We are more than welcome to, host you all. We have tickets available. Seats are limited. So do contact us and we will be able to assist you with that. In saying those words, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Audio stream across the world on radioalansar.co.za.